Well, welcome today to the 2020 Minnesota TZD webinar series, our penultimate webinar, and we are in for a tremendous ride today. Gordy and Chief Brady have some special findings for us, and get your seatbelt buckled, your other safety devices in order. This is going to be terrific. During the last webinar, we covered the topic of improving pedestrian and bicycle safety through corridor-based collaboration and data analysis. My take home was I kind of reframed it in my mind to how data can save your life. And it was a great, tremendous presentation. We had 6 speakers. Renee did a great job moderating, and it was really tremendous. Today, we're covering community engagement strategies for teen driver safety parent awareness programs. My name is Mark Kindy. I'm one of the Minnesota TZD 3 co-chairs and the manager of the Injury and Violence Prevention section at the Minnesota Department of Health. Next slide. Thanks, Paul. We want to start by thanking our hosts and sponsors, including the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, the Minnesota Department of Health, the Minnesota Department of Public Safety, and the Minnesota Department of Transportation. So just a few moments to kind of set the stage. As we've noticed in the past, epidemiology is the science that lets us ask why. It pushes us to dig deeper. Why did a certain injury or crash happen? What might have been done to prevent or to protect those who were injured? Were there underlying conditions or social determinants of health that contributed to or increased risk and decreased protective factors? Keeping our most vulnerable people with disabilities, our infants, our children, our young people, our seniors, alive and healthy are important values and commitments to us as a state and nation. TZD brings together multiple disciplines, from social and behavioral scientists to engineers and even epidemiologists, to law enforcement and educators, to EMS and surgeons, to communities, families, and parents, to weave a fabric or a tapestry of prevention. Another way to think about this, I think, is creating a net with holes small enough through which our most vulnerable cannot pass. We have to be intentional about injury prevention. The second law of thermodynamics is just that. It's a law. The world does tend toward chaos. Injury happens when energy is not contained. When energy transfer exceeds cellular capacity, then we have injury or trauma. Part of our being intentional about prevention is changing the narrative of crashes being unavoidable, unpredictable, and not preventable. We're helping to change the crash culture in Minnesota. And our presentation and discussion today highlight the role of parents and enforcement in creating that climate that fosters prevention. Before we start the official webinar topic, the TZD program is excited to recognize our TZD Award recipient for the 2020 Traffic Safety Innovation Award. This award recognized organizations for new or creative traffic safety solutions that help save lives on Minnesota roads. The 2020 TZD Traffic Safety Innovation Award recipient is American Student Transportation. This organization developed an upgraded lighting system for school buses to help prevent stop arm violations. Nothing worse, well, maybe a few things, but nothing worse than seeing vehicles speed around or past a school bus with its arm out and nail an unsuspecting child who's just disembarked from the bus. LED amber or red fusion lights are placed at eye level on the school bus, on the front, sides, and back. As motorists approach the school bus with the 8-way systems turned on and the stop arm deployed, they can see from 100 feet away, which gives them ample time to stop at least 20 feet from all sides of the bus. In cooperation with the Minnesota State Patrol, a pilot program was initiated in the Mounds View School District with 12 buses in August of 2019. An additional 20 buses will be added for the school year 2020 to 2021. So far, the data show that these lights are working to improve safety for school children. So another plug for our data collection and data analysis, but we are thrilled. And I'm just going to check my notes here to see if our colleague was able to join us. I believe that our colleague Kevin Bisick is on the webinar. And Kevin, would you like to say a few words? Okay, checking my notes, not able to join. Yes, Kevin. Oh, go ahead and unmute.
How about now? Awesome. Technology is great, isn't it? We'll get it eventually by the end of COVID, I imagine. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mark. It's a great pleasure to be with you all today to talk about student transportation safety and safety in general with the motoring public. Yeah, we started this program. It wasn't really recreating the wheel here. I saw this program or this rolled out in another state and in a very small way, but I kind of took it with my team, with Shalane, Lieutenant Brian Rue with the State Patrol. I got his go-ahead to try this pilot out, and it's been remarkable, folks. I think anything that draws attention to students crossing the bus, boarding safely, and that just brings more attention to the school buses in general. There's so much distraction out there these days that with cell phone use and you name it, there's so many distractions. So anything that brings a little added light, a little added attention for the safety it's remarkable. When we first started it, we thought it would be a neat idea, and it really took off. But we took these added lights and we put them on our most difficult routes or our high speed zones, and where people had less time to react to 8-way systems, the ambers and the reds. So this added lights to the front, side, and the rear of the bus it's really made a big difference. And we'd like to expand the program. Right now it's only in a pilot. Of course, everything's taken the back seat to COVID and COVID safety these days. So things have slowed down a little bit, but we have kind of added to it. In addition to the LED lights, we're changing out LED headlights that bring more attention to the unit, to the bus itself. And when you see the bus with the headlights, and then you see the amber and reds come on next, it gives you just that much more time to react. And when we talked to folks in law enforcement, spoke with violators, most of the folks just honestly said, I didn't either have time to react or I just didn't see them. So anything that brings attention to that was something that I thought would be a good idea. And our team with State Patrol and our great mechanics got in there and wired them, because it's not a plug and play system. They had to go in there and wire all new lights into the wiring harnesses, and it was a new thing for us, and it's worked out well, and we'd like to expand on that.
Kevin, thank you. This is just terrific. This is a great story, and thank you so much for what you and your company have done. Really appreciate
Thank
that.
you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
you bet. Well, now I'd like to turn this seminar today over to my colleague in public health and traffic safety, our own Tara Helm.
Thank you, Mark. My name is Tara Helm. I work for the Office of Traffic Safety at the Minnesota Department of Public Safety as the West Metro Towards Zero Deaths Program Coordinator, and I will be today's moderator. For those of you who are joining us late, welcome again to today's webinar, Community Engagement Strategies for Teen Driver Safety Parent Awareness Programs. If you have a question for our speaker, please put it in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. You can also ask for technical help during the webinar through the Q&A box as well. We will get to your question at the conclusion of the presentations today. If there is a question that needs immediate attention, I can interject at an appropriate time. The TZD webinar series is proud to offer continuing education credits. These credits are listed and available for this webinar. To find the forms, please go to the Community Engagement Strategies for Teen Driver Safety Parent Awareness Programs on the Minnesota TZD webpage. And for our law enforcement viewers today, post-board credits are also available for the webinar. Please read this important announcement from the post-board. If you're watching this webinar live, please watch the webinar in its entirety, and TZD will submit the affidavit of attendance report to the post-board for you. If you are watching a recorded version of this webinar, please complete the affidavit of attendance on the TZD website and email it to tzd@umn.edu. Instructions are available for you on the website if you need more details. Now to our topic for today, community engagement strategies for teen driver safety parent awareness programs. We have two speakers today for our webinar. Our first speaker is Gordy Pearson. Gordy Pearson is a project coordinator in the Office of Traffic Safety, Minnesota Department of Public Safety. Gordy has worked for DPS for 36 years. For the past 16 years, he managed a variety of Office of Traffic Safety projects. Prior to his current position, Gordy coordinated employee training for the DPS Driver License Examining Division and was a driver license exam supervisor. Before joining DPS, Gordy taught driver education for novice teen drivers and motorcyclists. Our second speaker is Chief Brady Jewell. Police Chief Brady Jewell with the Elko New Market Police Department has been serving the public for 26 years as a law enforcement professional. In that time, he has served at all levels of public safety for many organizations. Chief Jewell obtained his BS from Minnesota State University, Mankato, and his master's degree in public safety and law enforcement leadership from the University of St. Thomas. Chief Jewell is currently on the board of directors for Southern Valley Alliance, Advocates for Victims of Violence, and the president of the Scott County Chiefs of Police Association. He is a community values-based policing leader and emphasizes community-based education by law enforcement to be proactive in the community to help prevent crime and tragedy before it happens. And we'll turn it over to Gordy and Chief Jewell.
Good afternoon. Going to have to give me just a quick second here. All right. Can you see my PowerPoint slide? Tara, can you tell me if that's visible?
Gordy, this is Paul. Right now, we're still seeing the intro slides.
Okay. Still can't see it?
Still can't see it. So why don't you just, oh, there we go.
Is that working?
Yep.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
All right. And you can see my next slide, I'm assuming. I'm hoping so.
That's correct.
All right, great. Thank you. Sorry about that. I can drive a car, but I'm technologically challenged, and I guess I'm proud of it. Today, what we're going to be talking about is a few different things. The goals and objectives of this session is to have you learn a little bit about Minnesota's graduated driver licensing system, the Point of Impact Parent Awareness Program, how the Point of Impact program works as a community-based effort, give you a little bit of an idea about how to do maybe some presentation tips, things of that nature, and to learn about what the Point of Impact resources are that are available. But what we really want to do is give you some motivation to consider implementing the Point of Impact program in your own community. This is a phrase that I saw a while ago, and I did introduce this into the Point of Impact curriculum, the program, and I think that it speaks very, very loudly about the need for parent awareness. The death of any person is a tragedy, but preventable deaths are certainly a tragedy. And for those in the audience that may have lost a child, I can only imagine the pain that that offers a family. It's a very, very difficult thing. So, okay, we're going to get interactive here, and we're going to ask you a poll question. And to enter the poll question, I believe you go into the Q&A section there. So teens ages 16 through 19, they make up about 5% of Minnesota's licensed drivers. But how many fatal and serious injury crashes do you think they're involved with? 6%, 12%, 23%, or 30%? Go ahead and make your selection, if you would. Give you a second or two to do that. Okay, I'm not really sure if, there we go. All right, about 57% said 23%. Well, the correct answer is actually 12%. Now, while that's better than the 23 or 30%, please note that it is about double. It's actually quite a bit more than other drivers. So they represent 12% of the fatal and serious injury crashes in Minnesota. The average crash rate for all drivers is 32.2%. And teens ages 16 to 19, they are overrepresented in crashes and are nearly double the average rate for all other drivers. I do want to point out here that the crash rate for 15-year-olds is very, very low. As a matter of fact, 15-year-olds are the least experienced drivers, as we know, but they really aren't the problem. That's because they're driving with a permit and have a parent or other adult with them. Fatal crashes involving teen drivers do rise significantly when the teen becomes an independent or licensed driver. As you can see, it went from about 8 fatal crashes in 2015 to 2019, all the way up to 38. That's a pretty big jump. So in Minnesota and nationally, there have been a variety of teen driver safety programs that have been around for quite a few years. Some examples are driver education, mock crashes, so on and so forth. And while these programs can help reduce teen crashes, they tend to miss a very, very essential and important need: parents. There really haven't been many programs out there that really do engage and welcome parents into those discussions. Now, we do know that young driver behavior experts say that parents are the primary enforcers of the graduated driver licensing laws. We can't expect law enforcement to be the only enforcers of these laws. Parents really do need to understand how these laws are connected to the risks of today's teen drivers. Also, we know that informed and involved parents do make a difference in reducing young driver crashes. Unfortunately, though, many parents aren't adequately informed, and they might be making poor decisions about their teen drivers that put them at a higher risk of being in a crash, being injured, or even dying. Brady, Brady, I'm going to have you take the next slide then.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Very happy to be here. So if the parents aren't knowledgeable about the graduated driver's license system, who then does enforce that? Unfortunately, it's the police, law enforcement, troopers, deputies, police officers out on patrol. So Minnesota, I think, being very wise, seeing the statistics that Gordy just showed you, instituted a graduated driver's license system. And this point of impact, the biggest thing about it is educating the parents and the teens about that graduated driver's license system, and then why it's there and the need for it. And you saw that with the overrepresentation of underage drivers to the crashes. And I think the graduated driver's license system is so smart is because it's based on that data that Mark talked about at the very beginning, using statistics and data to come up with a program to reduce unnecessary crashes. So I think this is one of the best things the state has done and the smartest things the state has done in regards to teen driving. So every new driver, you gain experience at 15 with your parents. And that's why the crashes are so low with young kids, because they have an adult there. So law enforcement, although enforces it, the parents need to be the primary graduated driver's license enforcer. We can't catch everybody, and parents should be taking responsibility for that. So next slide. So the 3 stages of the graduated driver's license system, if you think about it, and this is your job when you do these point of impacts, is to educate them. If you think about it, the learner's permit. This is where you read the book, learn the laws, and then get that experience of and knowledge of the laws. And then in order to drive, you have to have an adult that's licensed with you over 21 years of age. Then, hence the word graduated, once you do get that driver's license, it's provisional, okay? There's provisions on that. And we really need to explain that to the community and to the parents. And this program helps with that. And then after a certain time frame, if you complete that provisional time, you get your full license status where you do not have any more restrictions. Go to the next slide. So learner's permit, you're eligible for that at age 15. You have to have that for 6 months. This is something that I think is probably the best. Having 2 college-aged kids, I got to go through this, is the adult supervision driving time. Now the state, as part of that, has added time frames that you have to spend driving with your kid. Now I know there's parents that probably just sign off on it or make up the hours, but the intent is to show the parents when you're doing these point of impact education studies, the reason for that is because the longer they drive with the adults and learn the rules, you're hoping that sticks. So as part of that, no cell phone use at all. And we're not just talking hands-free, no use at all. They cannot have anybody or be talking to anybody or using a phone at all to distract them. That's a big part. Belts. Everybody has to wear a belt all the time in the car. Of course, this one we added in there, not a drop. I think it's redundant. They're 15, they can't drink anyways, but it is accentuated there that you cannot have any alcohol to drink whatsoever. And then in order to get out of the graduated driver's license provisional status, you cannot have any violations or crashes. Otherwise, that time frame starts all over again. Next slide. Okay, so here's my chance at a poll question. Get out your computers and pens and get ready. During the first 6 months of licensure, how many non-family, I want to stress that, passengers under the age of 20 are legally allowed for a teen driver to have in the car? Choices are A, none, B, 1, C, 2 passengers, or D, 3 passengers. Going to give you some time to answer that. All right. Technology is amazing. All right, so during the first 6 months, 46% of you said none, 50%, half said 1, 4% said 2, and 3 and above, none. All right, well, the majority won in this case. The correct answer is 1. You're allowed 1 pass to do this. This is very important to stress this when you're giving these presentations, is because data showed, and we'll cover this earlier, that more people in the car, you're more distracted and more likely to get in an accident. So this is one of the smartest things they've done, that they can back up with crash data that is only 1 person in the car gives you the best chance. Now, non-family members, I guess they figure maybe they don't distract as much. I'm not sure. But if you need to take little brother, little sister to practice or drive your parents someplace, you can do that with more than 1. Next slide. All right. So now you've had your learner's permit. We went over the rules for that. Now your provisional license. The first 6 months that that teen has their license, they have graduated restrictions on them. So we learned from data that most of the crashes to teen drivers happened in the middle of the night. So what do we do? Until you have more experience, no driving from midnight till 5 a.m. If you have an adult who's 25 or older, or a family member who's 25 or older, of course you can drive them. No more than 1 passenger under 20. We covered that. And then I also covered the exceptions are the parents and siblings. So now graduated, little steps. The next 6 months, because the state looking at data and realizing that you've gone the first 6 months with no violations, they're going to allow you to have more. Now you have more experience, a year, year and a half with the time from the permit to the first 6 months of your graduated driver's license. They're going to allow you to have 3 passengers under the age of 20. And again, the exceptions, if you need to take family, you need to take your parents. I guess the siblings might not be as distracting, which could be counterintuitive, but that's what the law says, is that you might need to drive your family. Next slide. All right, consequences. This is a huge part. If you decide to have these point of impacts, and they're spectacular, by the way. For law enforcement, it's everything we're about: engaging the community, getting people of different ages, teens who are driving, and adults in one place and getting to interact with them, building that relationship with the community. The point of impacts we've done have just been spectacular for our community. And what you need to impress upon them is covered in these next couple slides. Is the moving violation is one thing. Getting a fine from $150 to $200. Violations do go on your record. And the huge thing, and I'll illustrate it as having experience, when my teen drivers hit, my insurance skyrocketed just having them there. But I was lucky, I never had any violations. But now you add in a speeding ticket, reckless driving, or another moving violation, the insurance costs for the entire family skyrocket. So it's important to hit on that if you're doing one of these education lectures, that it doesn't just affect the teen driver, it affects the entire family. And then, of course, violations, license suspension, which is huge. That driver may need, that teen might need to drive to go to school, to get to activities. So the violations are very consequential for that driver. Next slide.
All right. Thanks, Brady, very much. So to meet the need of engaging parents and supporting them, with the help of others, the Office of Traffic Safety created a program called Point of Impact. The model of the Point of Impact program is an actual classroom setting. It's very important that enforcement participates in the classes, and Brady will be talking about that in a little while. Includes a short video, also provides handouts for families to take home with them, and it is customizable. To some extent, local communities can take the PowerPoint presentation, the program model, and customize it to meet their local needs. An example of that is in a metro community, you may not want to introduce or include the slide that talks about limited farm work licenses. Makes sense if there aren't any members of that community that might use that. But in greater Minnesota, that would be one you'd want to keep in there. So the program model, the emphasis points on it are really to talk about the things that have already been discussed. The teen driving risks, how important parental involvement is, how important the supervised driving experience is, the permit stage. And then a very important one is post-licensure management. A lot of times parents feel that once their teen is licensed, once they've proven to the state that they can parallel park, that they no longer have to ride with their teens. And that's something that we try to drive home with them, that they really do need to do that. So there was legislation passed that was effective on January 1st of 2015 to address this problem. And it requires driver education providers to offer a parental awareness class. The legislation outlined the curriculum requirements for the class, which is in front of you right there. It was modeled after the Point of Impact program model. Now, with COVID-19 right now, driver educators can offer the parent awareness programs temporarily through distance learning, which means that it has to be instructor-led, and the presenter instructor has to see the participants with it. However, we do know that doing it in person is best. It really shows that there's a great deal of community concern and interest in this, and it's a lot better to get the message across and to have dialogue with people. So we're hoping that after in a post-pandemic world, that everybody will go back to the in-person program. With the program, there are a couple of handouts. These are the brochures that can be ordered at no cost through the Office of Traffic Safety. We really do recommend that every family gets all of the handouts given to them that night. It doesn't do much good to say to people, yeah, these brochures are available, on the website, go find them after the class. They're not going to do that. So if you give them to them during the class, they'll take them home, and we believe that the majority of them will review them and use the materials in there. So here's the next poll question. When using PowerPoint, an effective way to engage your audience and assure understanding is to do what? Tell stories and quiz the audience? Read directly off the slides? Or both of those? What do you think? What's the best way to engage your audience and to assure that they're understanding things? We should have music playing while this waits, right? Wait to get the results. All right. 77% said tell stories to illustrate points and quiz the audience, and 23% said both that and reading directly off the slides. Well, the correct answer is A, telling stories to illustrate the points and to quiz the audience is a good way of doing it. Actually, reading off the slides, in my opinion, is not a good way to do things. Most people already know how to read. So the presentation, the PowerPoint slides, should actually support what the storyteller or what the presenter is actually doing. It helps to engage the participants. Now, when you do tell stories, be sure to keep them short and make sure that they apply directly to the topic at hand. Also, quizzing the audience by asking them questions from time to time, that helps hold the participant interest, and it's a great way to engage your audience. I'm going to try to just kind of illustrate a few examples of what I do when I do point of impact presentations. I'm not saying that you will necessarily have to do it my way. Everybody has a way of doing it, doing presentations, and that's fine. But simply reading off the slides is not a good way to get your point across. Here's an example of one. I use this one to engage the parents. And by the way, parents are encouraged to bring their teens to the classes too. I think that's an important point, that the teens hear the same thing as what the parents do. So when I present this, I present it as if I don't know what I'm talking about. So I say, okay, look at this. I'm going to need a little bit of help with this. 15-year-olds are the least experienced drivers that we have. If we look at the blue bars there, it's the percentage of licensed drivers, and that does include instruction permits, by the way. And look at the red bar, and that's the number of crashes that they're involved with. The least experienced drivers, the 15-year-olds, aren't crashing, and that doesn't make any sense. So I usually ask the audience, can anyone tell me why the crash rate goes way up at age 16? And some typical responses are, they have more confidence, or they take more risks, or they drive more often. And I do acknowledge that their responses are good ones and affirm that they're correct. But the primary reason is that teens get their license at age 16 typically, and usually don't have a supervising adult with them. It provides an opportunity to comment that parents need to continue to ride with their teens, even after they're licensed, and that they need to establish and enforce their own family rules. Now, here's another example of a few handouts that are provided. And to anybody that would like this information, I can, at the end, you'll be able to get a hold of me, give my email address. But these are printed handouts that I can send you. And if you print them on both pages, front and back, there'll be basically 4 handouts, and then the 2 brochures. The first one is, and these are just little snippets out of these documents, the withdrawal of parental consent form. There's a lot of people that don't know about this. In this form, if teenagers know that their parents can withdraw their driving privileges simply by filling out a form and sending it to the state, it can be a pretty influential strategy to get teens to maybe shape up with their driving. If they're not following the family rules, for example, and the teen knows that the parent can fill this out and would, that's just one example of the value of this particular document. There's other documents as well, and again, these are just little bits and pieces of it. A document on helping your teen become a safer driver gives parents tips on how to help their teens. There's also another document about positive parenting. It talks about different parenting styles, and positive parenting is one that works the best. The other handouts are a supervised driving log, which parents do need to sign. And teens, in order to be eligible for their driver's license, their provisional license, they have to show that they have completed at least 50 hours of supervised practice, of which 15 has to be at night. There's also a parent-teen driving contract. It's just one example of a parent-teen driving contract, but we do emphasize in the parent program that, that parents do introduce their teens to the world of adult privileges and responsibilities by entering into a driving contract with their teens. So those are the documents that we highly recommend are provided to the families at the point of impact classes.
Hey, Gordy, can I jump in there real quick?
You certainly may.
To all my law enforcement brothers and sisters out there, this is one that we forget, the parental consent. When they're under 18, the parent can withdraw their child's driver's license. And I don't know the amount of times, it's in the dozens, that I've had a parent tell me, I just don't know what to do. Because I make it a practice, I try to call all the juvenile parents and let them know how their child's driving. And one of the things I tell them is take their license away. And they're like, well, how do I do that? And when I actually tell them I'm serious, you can have it withdrawn as a penalty. It gives them great confidence because, and I try to tell them in front of the kids as well, because the parent is the number one deterrent for the driving. Cops can't be everywhere. So the parents need to take that initiative. And so as part of this education, when Gordy and I were sitting in front of 130 teens and parents, and this came up, you should have seen the looks on the kids and the parents' face. I mean, it was amazing. So this is something to use out there on the road when you're educating parents. More than one time, I dealt with a teen driver a lot. I went to the parent and I said, listen, you need to consider taking away his driver's license. He's not acting responsible and he's cruising up your insurance costs, and just get rid of that. So that's just one thing. It's a tool for law enforcement, but it's an education enforcement thing as well, because the parents don't know they have this ability, and we need to remind them of that. So I just wanted to jump in there, Gordy, with that education piece for the handouts, because this is huge for teen drivers and parents.
Yeah, thank you, Brady. That's a very good point. And when I've talked to parents about this before, first of all, a lot of them don't even know that exists. And then when I would ask them, well, why would parents not use it? They think that they have to go through jump through a bunch of hoops and steps in order to get their teens' driving privileges reinstated. And they don't. Really, all that they have to do is they have to go in and resubmit the form, checking a different box. And it's not a bad thing on their driving record either. It's not like a revocation or suspension or cancellation. It doesn't reflect negatively from an insurance or a driver licensing standpoint when they use that. Thank you, Brady. Okay, here's another poll question. The leading cause of teen deaths in Minnesota, what is it? Traffic crashes, other unintentional injuries, suicide, or homicide? What do you think it is? What's the leading cause of teen deaths in Minnesota? We should have some Jeopardy music, like I say, or something going on when we're waiting for these.
Feel free to hum it, Gordy, if you want.
Oh, no. Singing and dancing, not my gig. Okay, what's the leading cause? All right. Well, as expected, 76% believe it's traffic crashes, 4% other intentional injuries, 20% says suicide, none said homicide. Well, the correct answer is C, suicide. Kind of surprised a few of you, didn't I? Good. All right, so traffic crashes continue to be the leading cause of teen deaths in the United States. And it used to be the leading cause in Minnesota. But in recent years, suicide, unfortunately, surpassed traffic crashes as the leading cause of teen deaths here in Minnesota. So initiatives like Towards Zero Deaths and the graduated driver licensing system, they have helped to reduce teen-involved crashes, injuries, and deaths here in Minnesota. But I want to emphasize that traffic crashes are still a close second and deserve our attention to help reduce the number of teens killed on our roadways. Just because it's second doesn't mean that it's not important. It is the second leading killer of Minnesota teens, but 16 to 19-year-olds are still overrepresented in all types of traffic crashes. And when I do the point of impact classes, this is one of the slides in there, and I really try to place emphasis on the second bullet, and that is that the greatest risk of death is during the first year of licensure. I really try to emphasize that to the parents, because again, parents typically feel that if the teen has got their driver's license, obtained their driver's license, that they don't have to practice with them or spend time with them anymore. I also talk about this last bullet point on here, stating that the majority of the deaths and over half of the teen injuries occur in greater Minnesota. And this is an opportunity for me to ask the audience, engage the audience with a question. I say, why do you think the vast majority of teen deaths occur outside of the Minnesota's major metropolitan areas, like the Twin Cities and Mankato, St. Cloud, Duluth, and those kind of areas? Why do you think that? And then people will respond, and I acknowledge their responses. And then I just do a short review to make sure that the primary points are understood. One of them is that there are more single lane roadways, just one lane in each direction, and they aren't very forgiving if a head-on crash were to occur. There's also less visible enforcement because they cover a much larger area in greater Minnesota. The speeds are typically higher, there's higher alcohol use, and drivers and passengers, especially with teens, are more likely to not buckle up. So most of the problems that we have with serious injuries and fatalities, not just for teens, but for all drivers, occur in greater Minnesota. So we have a slide in the Point of Impact program about things that we can control, things like wearing your seatbelt, not speeding, making good decisions and such. But we also have a slide in there about things that we can't control. The things like invincibility, peer pressure and brain development, inexperience, speeding, passengers, and seatbelts are things we can control. But we hope that parents will understand with the things that they can't control, when I say we control, either we as parents or we as individuals, that they'll maybe make safer decisions about their teens driving. So I also kind of get into people's faces a little bit, and I kind of sometimes even yell it to them. I say, believe it or not, your teen's driving behavior is going to be different when you're not in the car. If they don't think so, then wake up. We also talk about teen passengers, which is very, very important. And the passenger restrictions for the graduated driver licensing laws are probably the most violated law. So many times parents will allow their teens to have other passengers in the vehicle when either they know that they shouldn't or they know it's against the law. So it's a fairly common occurrence. We want parents to think about their teens as passengers in another teen's vehicle, as well as their teen being the driver, and how having teen passengers increases the risk of being in a fatal crash.
And Gordy, if I can jump in here, for the law enforcement people, this is another spot where I would typically jump in and go, my horrific crashes in my 26 career, almost all have been multiple teens in the car. And when Gordy approached me about doing this program and I saw this slide for the first time, the light bulb went off in my head. And I'm like, I can attest to that. I didn't realize that. I didn't know that, but it's so true. And for law enforcement, if you're doing this, to impress upon the participants that this is a fact. And this is, again, a solid statistic that points to why we have the graduated driver's license. And this right here, it reduces those crashes because it reduces the distractions in the car.
Then the next slide actually illustrates, thank you, Brady. The next slide also illustrates the difference when you introduce adult passengers in the vehicle. The risk of being killed drops by 62% when driving with somebody age 35 or more. And basically, it's because of what Brady said, their role is different. The role of a teenager, a peer in a car, is basically as a distractor. You know, they'll take out their cell phone and, hey, look at this cat video or something, they'll say to the driver. Whereas an adult in the car is typically a second set of eyes that's saying, look out for this, look out for that. So those roles are significantly different. And that's why the crash rate goes way, way down, or the chance of being killed way down when you have a supervising adult in the vehicle. One of the things that we really do try to emphasize to parents significantly is that while there are the minimum driving hour requirements, the 50 hours of which 15 have to be at night, that has to be logged, we really do emphasize that parents need to spend many, many more hours, additional hours of supervised driving time with their teens in a variety of driving conditions and environments. Really, nobody really teaches their kids, and driver educators typically don't teach the kids how to do, for example, emergency braking on snow or ice. What we do is we wait until our teens get their driver's license and they're at a buddy's house and they figure it out on their own when they leave their friend's house. And now they don't know what to do if somebody's maybe gonna slide through an intersection and they have to slam on the brakes. They don't know if their vehicle has anti-lock brakes, or if they do, then how to react to that. So we emphasize to parents to get them out practicing in a variety of conditions, including, rain and snow and that sort of stuff. Now, we also have a handout for parents if they don't feel comfortable teaching them how to do, crash avoidance skills programs like emergency lane changes and off-road recovery and skid prevention. There are a couple of programs in Minnesota at the Highway Safety Research Center in St. Cloud and Dakota County Technical College, where there are programs where instructors will actually teach these young drivers that are licensed how to handle these kind of situations. We really also emphasize to them that they need to take their teens out in a variety of driving conditions, like out on gravel roads, because vehicles do behave differently on gravel roads than they do on paved surfaces. So it's really important that parents spend a lot of time practicing with their teens while they're in the instruction permit phase. We also talked briefly about insurance costs, and we just provide examples. And I do have to emphasize that insurance costs do vary significantly in different parts of the state. So these are illustrative examples. They are real examples, but they just illustrate the costs of violations and that sort of thing. It also shows the difference between male and female drivers. And when we look at the cost, say, for example, after crashes or having an impaired driving crash, or a DWI, excuse me, who's going to pay that? We want parents and teens to start having the conversation about the cost of insurance and who's going to pay for that. And how is that going to work? If they have a ticket and the costs go up, how is that going to work? We also emphasize that when teens have a little skin in the game, or they have a financial interest in the operation of their vehicle and keeping a safe, clean driving record, that does help motivate them to make safer driving decisions. Of all the things that's in the Point of Impact program, the thing that I really try to emphasize to parents is that if they don't get anything else out of the program, I want them to get this. And that is that parents have to make decisions about their teen drivers that place safety as the priority over convenience. We know that parents want their teens to get their driver's license so they don't have to take them to hockey practice anymore, or band practice, or things of that nature. We understand that. But again, the tragedy of having to deal with a teen involved in a serious injury or fatal crash is beyond any sort of inconveniences that any parent could ever have if their teen was involved in a crash. So the next slide, I'm going to turn it over to Brady, and he's going to talk about law enforcement and other parts of this.
So I think the reason why this program is so successful is it's a multifaceted approach to it. You have somebody in public safety like Gordy that goes over the statistics, the educational need for the stats, the data, how it's collected, and it builds a foundation for this program and uses data to drive that part home. And as far as law enforcement, why I'm so impressed with it is it gives us a platform to get in front of our community. When you do these classes, and I hope you do, you're in front of your constituents, the people you serve. And anytime, as I mentioned before, you can build a relationship with the parents, the teens, and get out there and be proactive, it's a wonderful success for your police department, your sheriff's department, or whatever organization you're working for. It builds that trust with law enforcement. And it gives foundation to those teens why you are out there enforcing these laws. You're not doing it to be mean. You're not doing it for a power trip. You're doing it to try to keep people safe. So it shows when you participate interest in your community. Law enforcement, I think, brings an aspect to this program that if just Gordy did it, it could be successful. It's educational. But when law enforcement does it and talks about the laws and shares the stories and events, it hits it home and it makes it real. And you're there, you're accessible. Law enforcement, it's a huge thing now, is being accessible to your communities. Well, we were there in Elko New Market with 130 people, and probably 40 came up and asked questions either before or after. So it's a great way to get in front of your communities and build that relationship. And sharing the stories. I tell the people and the parents, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to get you to respect what's happening. I really hit home with the personal stories about when you're driving a car, it's like driving a bullet. You have the power and authority in the wheel to kill people out there if you're reckless and you disregard the laws. And then I asked about firearms. Parents, how many of you give a loaded Glock 9mm to your kids when they go out to school? And they all look at me and laugh, and of course they don't raise hands. But I say, in essence, aren't you doing the same thing when you give them the keys and they get to drive away? You bet. That's the responsibility. And I try to get them to feel that responsibility, feel that respect for that vehicle. And it's just something, I'm not bragging about law enforcement, but when you've been out there and you've seen these crashes, it legitimizes what Gordy was teaching with all the education. So I can't speak highly enough about it. Next slide.
Chief Jewell, before you move on, we had a question come in about if in communities where law enforcement aren't trusted or respected messengers, can they appear for point of impact programs in plain clothing?
Nothing would stop them. But if it's that bad in your community that people who are coming to learn about traffic safety or have to be there, they're probably not going to engage or not come to the presentation anyways. But of course, if you feel that coming in a suit and tie would be more effective for your community and your situation, go right ahead. But then when are they going to be able to see a police officer then if they don't go to a community engagement like that and get to see a law enforcement officer who's there to protect them, to educate them, and to help them? I don't know, a better spot for helping to rebuild that. So I advocate going in a uniform, some type. If you don't wear a uniform daily and you're in khakis and a polo, then do that. But they're going to know you're a police officer. So if they don't respect or like you anyways, and you don't feel safe or appropriate to go, then don't. That's a tough one. But if you want to build a relationship in your community, show up in your uniform and show that side of law enforcement, that you're not there. Show why and try to educate why you are making traffic stops and while you're enforcing those things. It's a tough one, but I'm such an advocate for being there in uniform and letting them know who is going to be the one stopping them out there on the road. Hope that answers your question. If not, you're going to have my contact information. Please email me and we can discuss more. All right, so going back to the recent teen crash, this is part where unless you've been in law enforcement, unless you've seen and had the displeasure to tell family members their loved ones are dead, it just changes you. And I think that passion and the experience that the officers have gone through when they're teaching this class, and it really can hit home. So recent teen crashes, you have to walk lightly because the pain can still be strong and you don't want to offend anybody, but using examples, showing pictures, these types of things, I think I don't do it. I don't show a lot of crash videos or pictures because it's kind of that shock and awe. I'd rather just relate my personal experiences about the crashes I've been at and how we're the ones who have to tell people that their loved one is deceased and how tough that is, and just kind of educate them through your personal experiences. Gordy, did you have something to add there?
No, go ahead.
Okay, all right. So this is me at the large class that we had, and I know I've brought it up several times. These are the opportunities law enforcement crave, to get in front of the public and the parents and the kids and help explain why we do what we do and how important this education and this program is. I mean, this is, they're gold. And we in law enforcement look for these opportunities all the time because we just want to be able to get out there in the public. So at Elko New Market, when I took over, this was already a program here, a wonderful opportunity. It's put on by and sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce in Elko New Market. And this example of the brochure that we've had. And what it does is not only are you working with the teens and the parents, but your community members, reaching out, talking to towing companies, Chamber of Commerce, community groups, insurance companies, working with them in your community. Again, it increases being in your community and it increases those relationships. So not only are you educating and you're getting that benefit with them, you're also working with community members. It's a trifecta there where you get to the best opportunity to meet with your community. So reach out to these people in your community if you're looking to do this and keep this going, or get this going in your community. The people that we've had, Gordy can attest, they get an opportunity, to advertise, of course, right? Towing companies, auto body repairs, insurance companies, they get their name in front of people. But what happens is they also have a passion for safety and they relate their experiences to the community members as well. So it's not just public safety, it's not just law enforcement. The community members also get to speak to these teens, relay some tragic events if they would like, what happened to them, and what they get to tell why they're sponsoring this. So the business involvement, the chamber involvement is just incredible. And might I add, I know there's a lot of law enforcement, oh, this seems so hard to put on, it's so much to do. It really is an easy program. Almost all of you in your communities, you have some community room, a library. We do ours at the community room in the library, a gym, a school, auditorium, community centers, large businesses. You just get the room, you work with Gordy, get the materials, Gordy or someone from Department of Public Safety about the program, get some community members together. We make ours an event, several hours long. We got our local Domino's to donate 50 pizzas, I think, to feed the 120 plus, 130 plus people there. It's not a super huge time constraint to get set up, but the benefits of that hugely, Gordy can step in here, hugely outweigh what you put into it. You reap many times over.
I think one of the things I want to emphasize is that while driver educators across the state of Minnesota are required to offer a parent awareness class that the point of impact program, well, the legislation actually modeled the point of impact program, there are communities in the state of Minnesota that are underserved by the driver education community. They may only offer it once a year in a community where, you know, the parents really could use it, you know, 2 or 3 times a year. So I'm trying to kind of advance the whole idea of the point of impact program, not to take it away from the driver education providers, because there's some out there that do a really, really good job. But in your community, if the driver education providers aren't able to meet the local need, do it as a community service project. And as Brady has already, I think, illustrated and demonstrated here, that it works really well in Elko New Market. Another community where we did this in the metro area was Eden Prairie, through the Eden Prairie Police Department. And they did their own promotion of it. And we had a packed room. And when we initially piloted the Point of Impact program several years ago, we did an evaluation of it, a survey, to see what parents knew about teen driving laws and some of their attitudes about things and their confidence in understanding teen driving, you know, risks and that sort of thing. And so we gave them a little quiz at the beginning and then collected those. And then at the end, we gave them the same quiz and we compared the two results. And we found that the vast majority of parents learned something. And they said that they liked the program and they would recommend it to parents of other teen drivers and so on and so forth. So we do know that if the program is done well in an engaging manner, and if it's also, you know, conveyed properly, in other words, you have to advertise for it. You have to invite people to come. If you do it well, then the word gets around and people will talk to other parents after it and say, yeah, that was really worth going. And then that will continue to drive the motivation to have people come there. So thank you.
I will say that we, just to add that, chalk it up to another thing COVID ruined. We chose not to do it virtually this year because we feel the power of this program is the in-person talking. We had a driver's simulator there that simulated people driving drunk. The in-person impact is, we just didn't feel we could convey it online on Zoom. So that is why we didn't have it this year. We think so highly of the program, we didn't want to change it and then sour the reputation it had. So we are looking at starting them up again in person. But so that's why we didn't have it this year. We just felt it's too good of a program and we wanted to keep it that way. So with that, I think the next slide.
I think from the standpoint of what Brady and I have, that's pretty much it. We do welcome the opportunity to help anybody and everybody that is interested in the program. I can provide the Point of Impact PowerPoint presentation, the handouts, and provide any sort of technical support that anybody would want for this. There's in the state of Missouri, they had learned about the Point of Impact program a few years ago, and they implemented their own program. They call it something a little bit different, but they really took the model and did it statewide in the state of Missouri. So we welcome the opportunity. I welcome the opportunity to work with people from other states as well. And I know that Brady has been wonderful in helping with this as well and promoting it. So we're here to help you guys. If you think you're interested in doing something, learning about it, I welcome the opportunity. We welcome the opportunity for you to contact us. Tara?
Tara, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Very lightly.
Okay, I'll try to speak up then. Sorry about that.
No, it's perfect.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Thank you, both Chief Jewell and Gordy, for your presentation today. We do have one question. I know you touched on this briefly a little bit, Chief. Are there any other Point of Impact programs across the state of Minnesota that have done it virtually this year during COVID-19? I know you said you did not do any down in the Scott County area this year virtually.
No, I don't know of any that have done it virtually. And it could just be, you know, I'm on the downhill slide of my career, so this computer and Zoom stuff is newer. I don't know if anybody's taken it on. I'm just more of an in-person presenter. I like to be in person. I like to see the people that we're communicating with, and I think that's where the true value is in the program. And it's not negative. It's just kind of, that's how I've always operated. But I just think people get so much more out of it in person with this particular program, which has so many hands-on aspects to it.
And I think that if I might add to that, that the driver educators who are the primary users of the Point of Impact program, that they have the allowance to do the distance learning portion for the parent awareness programs. But I don't have any idea as far as how many driver ed providers are offering it virtually. I hate to use the term virtually, but distance learning, and which ones are not. They can do them in person still if they, you know, do the distance, do the, you know, CDC guidelines, things of that nature. I just participated in one on Sunday night at Shakopee High School in their auditorium. We only had about 40, 50 people there, but they were all wearing masks. I was wearing a mask, and everybody was, you know, maintaining social distancing. But hopefully in a post-COVID world, everybody will go back to live presentations, much for the reasons that Brady had expressed. I totally agree with Brady's opinion on that. And
I do see Deanna from Missouri. They've been doing their first impact programs virtually, and they're definitely better attended, she's saying. They prefer the in-person, but they've had some success, it sounds like, doing it online as well. So it's very good. I'm glad for Missouri. That's awesome. And part of it could be too, we're a very small organization. We don't have a ton of technical know-how. For us, it didn't make sense. So I'm glad it's working for you guys, that you're able to still do it.
Another thing that Missouri does as well with the First Impact program, forgive me because I forgot the name of it, and I've worked with Dina down there. They do, for those people that are going to be presenting it, they offer an instructor training program. And that's one thing I wish we would have in Minnesota as actually a requirement, that if you're going to be using the Point of Impact curriculum, that you know, maybe take a little bit of a training session with us. We tried that with driver educators. Not many showed any interest in it, but I am willing to work in communities with communities if they would like me to come there and do a train the trainer session. Just let me know.
I'm also available if Hawaii wants to fly me out there to do some train the trainers. I'll participate as well if anybody from Hawaii is out there. And Dina says they call it facilitator training. So, boy, Missouri is just, they're rocking it down there.
Oh, yeah.
Don't have any other questions at this time.
Looks like James said they had an issue with the video playing virtually. When they did their training.
There is a Point of Impact video. It's 8 minutes long. There was an order, basically, or a request to withdraw that video. Not that there was anything wrong with it, but one of the people that was in the video didn't want their image to be used anymore. So I just want to let everybody know that is using Point of Impact out there right now, that we are just beginning work on a new video to replace the old one. If you're also using the older Point of Impact PowerPoint presentation, I've revised that. If you don't have the newer one, it just looks differently. There's some new information on it, but it's not significantly different than the original. But to keep it fresh, at least for those of you that are presenting it frequently, to keep it fresh for you at least, I did some updating to that. So please contact me if you don't have that or would like it, please.
One other question that just came in is, when you say absolutely no cell phones for teen drivers, does that also include using phones for GPS?
I was just typing, you probably heard the statute, it's no cell phone use. So when you're actually using your phone as a GPS unit, under hands-free law, you can use it, but you're technically using that device and one of its functions. So I would say that no, you could not use it as a GPS unit because you're still accessing the applications that are on the phone. And what is a GPS? It's a distraction device. If you're looking at the map, they don't want you to use it. Now, I could not see citing somebody for that if that's what they were doing, and if it was mounted to the dash and everything. So technically, I believe it would be a violation. Would you ever see a citation for that? I would have a hard time believing so.
Yeah, another person had mentioned that there's another video that you can use in place of the point of impact video if you need. It's called Young Drivers, the Teenage Years. And again, if you're interested in getting information on that, I can provide that to you if you'd like.
And James again stated that it's a gray area with the GPS. Yeah, that's a great way to explain it. But the statute actually addresses it for hands-free that we have here in Minnesota. And for teen drivers under the provisional, it does not. So it just says using cell phone or no electronic device, I believe, or handheld device. But
you know, a lot of times when doing point of impact programs, the questions that are asked, a lot of them that come from parents and the teens ask about specifics of the laws. And I try to avoid getting into the nitty gritty, you know, is this legal, is that illegal, and come back to the basic message. And that is it something that causes a distraction in the vehicle that if you didn't use it, you would be a safer driver? And if the answer to that is yes, then I would say, then make the right decision. Don't use it. Simple as that, because you can really easily get mired into the mud about the technicality of law, of this being legal or not legal, and so on and so forth. So again, getting back to that primary message of safe driving is really what we're after here. A little common sense can go a long way, I believe. Well,
For attendees for chiming in with your questions today, and for our panelists for addressing those questions that came in. So Paul, I think you can go to the next slide, please. So thank you again to our speakers and today's viewers. We hope you learned something new and will share your knowledge with your colleagues and consider doing a point of impact teen driving program in your community. Like Chief Jewel and Gordy said, feel free to reach out to them with any questions or for any resources that they can help provide you with. A link to an evaluation for today's webinar can be found in the chat box and will also be emailed to you. Please take a couple of minutes to fill out the survey. The TZD leadership team does read the results from these surveys and uses that information for future events. We encourage you to follow the Minnesota Towards Zero Death program on our social media pages on both Twitter and Facebook. And lastly, we hope that you sign up for other webinars in the series. I strongly suggest you attend webinars outside of your E and share information about the upcoming webinars with your colleagues, friends, and family. The next webinar will be this Thursday, November 19th. It's not too late to register for the event. Speakers from all the E's will be discussing the impact of COVID-19 on traffic fatalities. Many predicted that the fatalities would decrease during this time, but that was not the case. Learn more this Thursday. Remember, the webinar is free, but registration is required. And finally, the Minnesota TZD program would like to end with this message. Our work to reduce fatalities and serious crashes may seem harder than ever right now. Hold your head high and know together we are stronger. Together we can make a difference. Together we can make our roads safer for all roadway users. Together we can get to zero. Thank you again for tuning in for today's webinar.